this week followed on seamlessly from the last share. And for those on Rumble, apologies, it didn't load up properly, and it wasn't until someone actually told me that I actually reloaded it and put it up, because to tell you the truth, there are sometimes more people watching on Rumble than even YouTube, so apologies for that. I will from now on check to make sure that it's actually running rather than running out the door. So this week I'm calling it the normality and the power of making it nothing. And I'm hoping that you can hear with your ears that making something nothing does not mean not caring. It does not mean you're a narcissist, which no doubt when you make it nothing, some will call you. It is such a powerful position. In many ways, we are trained, literally trained, to be dualistic. Because to be on one side or the other side, or to hold your own opinion and not give someone else an opinion, can be used energetically any time they want to use a trigger against you, be it a being, be it others, be it your child, be it someone at work. I mean, that's how it does work. So the more ability you can have to observe and see that it says more about them than it does about you, and not take it personally, even though at times it is good to hear it and say, yeah, I hear you, I can do better. There is a place for that. But there's a very powerful place that showed up this week. And it's often not seen because it's not really that often spoken about, because it's like whenever you speak about nothing, it's very hard to talk about the nothing in many different ways. So at the beginning of the week, someone came, and so much in life had been stood in and cared about. What had not been seen is that they came into this world with this incredible ability to have this space of neutrality, and it often shows up in the solar plexus as nothing is there, because nothing can trigger it, nothing can disturb the energy there. And it was so strong in her, this element, that it actually said, and you can't do anything about this. This is, you came with this. It's not something you can rub out. And in hearing it, it was recognized that all the positions that she's had, all the circumstances in life where she has stood and spoke at times when others were falling apart, came from that place and the absolute power of it. But the wonderful thing there was that not only was it the power, but the sense of the absolute normality that her life is able to be in the face of all the storms that may arrive, to be able to be in that place and have that as normal in her life, had her see herself in a way where that could be embraced. So often when people have that capacity, others say, you're in denial, you're in denial. You should be grieving, you should be upset, you should be, like what's wrong with you if you haven't got all these emotions? But there are times when there are none. It is that clear, it is that seen. A lot of stuff that people are very upset about the response very often is, well, how come I'm not surprised? Very often, the denial is in not seeing it. And once you see it, you actually can be very calm, because emotions are actually forks and knives to work things out. When it's worked out, the emotions are really not necessary. Then you have this clarity. So this clarity showed up. And that was followed, this was actually followed up by a being who was celebrating the transition of a loved one, and their relationship was so pure that it was so known, the love for each other, that it too was one where, sad as it was, there wasn't any processing that was needing to be done. Again, because the love was so clear, it was a nothing. It was just a knowing, the power of the knowing. So someone came and saw me, and although over time, over and over again, the capacity of this being has been revealed over and over again, and the clarity of that is wonderful, but then it can again be disturbed. And this time, it really sank in. The penny dropped so deeply that it was clear that regardless of how others can use the triggers to kind of have it as a whip to make you work harder, to be better, and for you to go through the hoops because of what I want, it was finally really seen, I am extraordinary in what I do. And the feedback is becoming more and more that that is the case. And of course that has started to show up because she herself is seeing it more, and the more she sees it, the more the feedback comes. The saying, for those who have much will be given, that is also, if you see yourself properly, you will get the feedback of that. It's interesting how that works. So there's a real sense here that the clarity of that is to be able to make whatever comes her way, nothing, in the clarity of how clear she is at the max of her ability. And I'm sure that people will start to go, what's going on here? The triggers aren't working anymore. She doesn't care. I think something might be wrong. No, something's not wrong. Something is now very, very clear that from this point forward, she can see herself in such a way that those items will not undo her, and if anything, will be put back as to what they may need to put in place instead of her. And that kind of follows on from the last week, where you get very clear about something. It draws a line that you can actually stand on, rather than feeling you have to keep lifting yourself higher to do more. Then it's interesting, because much as we need to see clearly who we are as we go along, and it is a sense of comfort with self, liking yourself. It is a comfort with who you are. And what showed up during the week was very much where that wasn't seen. But on the other hand, it also was when it was held back. And one of the sessions was very interesting, because certain things weren't working out as was planned, and it was starting to feel scary to actually venture further and to take things on again. And it went back to when this being was 2 years old, because this being came with massive energy, and I actually said, well, what do your parents say about when you were little? And it was like I was full on. And what happened at 2 is the realization of the energy realized it was full on, and it pulled back, and that the full on that was still there was not the full on, it was a subdued full on. And holding it in that lower energetic space rather than the fullness of it misses that point of absolute clarity of how clear you are about something, because it takes that full connection to self and all that you are to bring things into the world as you want to create them. So it became very clear and obvious. And the downside of holding back actually is that the amount you hold back from yourself, you then put onto other people. It becomes an expectation for others to fulfill it, to make it as much as you want it to be. While you hold yourself back, the bit you hold back then becomes troublesome for others. So when you fully embrace that whole energy, you yourself then become response-able to bring that about, and it's more complete, and then things aren't fearful to enter into because the fullness of who you are is embracing it. This holding back can also happen when abuse has happened when you're young, and many people have experienced terrible abuse when they are young, and some of those grudges, if they aren't fully seen, released, looked at, can express itself as a grudge against others, because the others, whoever the others that it's projected on, that is then felt towards them. And the, I'm not sure whether I'm saying it properly, but the Ho'oponopono prayer is beautiful in those circumstances. And I forget the name of the guy who actually interpreted that same prayer in a different way, but it's beautiful, and I'll read it to you, because it's just so gorgeous. So his version of that prayer was, I love you, God. I am sorry I have not recognized your love and your divine orchestration in every moment of my life. Please forgive me. Thank you. Because all those things perpetrated, all those disappointments, and I know it's hard to hear this, but they are the most extraordinary teachers we'll ever meet in the ability to be able to be at peace with that and to let it go. You know, you can have something very precious in your hand, and you drop it and it shatters. The practice of recognizing it, dustpan and brush, pick it up, put it in the bin, and go next. If you spill something, wipe it up, next. They're really good exercises for the ability to not argue with it spilled, not argue with that something got broken, rather have the ability to go next. And very often it's really nothing, a lot of stuff sometimes has nothing to do with us. We feel it for others, but it's not our lives. And to be taken away by that does not serve. It doesn't serve them, nor does it serve you. So these practices of being able to see things for what they are. If you drop something and it smashes, it's normal. Move on. They're really good exercises. Another way of holding back was shown up where, and this happens in relationships, we can be so annoyed with our partners that we constantly gather evidence that is negative, continuously, this, that, the other, and focusing on the negatives. And after a while, if both parties are doing that, being at home is not a comfortable thing. And again, that can be moved by the simple exercise of looking for two good things and at least sharing one of them. Research has shown that people who are kind end up having a lot of kind things in their life. The same works if you're always looking for the negative. You'll end up in a negative world. So the ability to look for the good and to share it can change the atmosphere in a house so that at least you can be good mates together, and that will lead further on to doing things together. We can really go down a very dark road when we don't know how to make something nothing. The more it's nothing, the more normal it becomes. Yes, there's a negative to that as well as a positive, but used in a positive way so that you can move on in life, and to be life affirming is the invitation here. So the cards that showed up this week were wisdom and joy. So, wisdom, living your knowing and walking your talk. This is turning your knowledge into wisdom. You can do it every day in millions of ways and just through talking about it. Actually, it says, and not just talking about it. You're always wise. Do not let your self-doubt undermine your knowing. Be wise in your decisions as you take into account all circumstances. The wisdom of the river of all knowledge is available to you. So when that is there and the clarity is there, because that clarity of how you see it does become the nothing. It is so nothing, it's that clear to you that there's no argument in it. Others can have their opinion, but there's no argument in it, which I would say leads to joy. Be joyous that you be. Be happy about how things are in your life. Take pleasure in the little things. Judge nothing to be too insignificant. Know that an attitude of joy can melt away all difficulties. You may be in for some delightful festivities or a joyous surprise, and that can even happen when you're by yourself. Look at that bird that just flew up there. Actually, a crystal came up for this, and the crystal was chrysolite. And chrysolite, generally it says it stimulates inner vision, that's self. Physically reduces toxins in the physical body. Because when it's nothing, there's no stress. And emotionally, it says decreases emotional blockages to spiritual unfoldment, because when you clear, there are no emotions. So, the power of the nothing, the clarity of it. Lots of love. Catch you next week.